Hey, what's going on, Cashflow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180. I got my buddy Matt Seibert here, the director of agent development for Life 180, and we are going to be talking about some fun stuff. We were on a panel of agents yesterday talking about whole life insurance, the facts of whole life insurance, kind of the attributes and values that whole life insurance kind of brings to our personal financial world. Matt started talking about like all these pillars of Stoic principles and all that stuff, and it instantaneously like intrigued me because I know Matt is kind of like a I don't know, how would you say, you're like a practicing Stoic, you study Stoicism pretty deeply.
Yeah, I would say I'm actually a published Stoic practitioner.
Okay, that's cool. I've always been kind of fascinated by Stoicism because I've had a lot of people throughout the years kind of tell me that my natural way of operating is very Stoic in nature. And so I'm actually, when I moved down to the DR, one of the 6 books that I put in my bag and brought with me was the Marcus Aurelius, memoirs, effectively, his journal or whatever. And I started reading it, and I'm still reading it to this day. And it's pretty cool. And so yesterday, Matt was talking about these 4 pillars of Stoicism, and there are more than 4 pillars, but he was speaking specifically about these 4 pillars, and how they really directly aligned with our philosophies and what we coach people to in personal finance. And so whether you're a practicing Stoic, or whether you're somebody who's interested in Stoicism, or whether you're somebody who doesn't care about Stoicism one way or another, I think this will just be an interesting video for you to watch, because I think we're going to cover just a lot of principles and values that, whether you're Stoic or not, I think they're going to overlap. I think a lot of the values will overlap with a lot of other faiths and beliefs, and I think it'll bring a lot of value, and it'll probably get you to think a little bit differently and challenge maybe some of the current ways of thinking that you have. And so yeah, man. So before we get into it, do me a favor and like break it down, make it simple for those who are maybe watching and are like, I don't even know what Stoicism is. Give like the 3-minute like kind of introduction to what Stoicism is as a philosophy, how that is different than a religion, and kind of connect the dots to get started, and then we'll go in from there.
It's funny, before I go into that,
Yeah.
Life 180, because the word life, it's an acronym for living intentionally for excellence. That's very Stoic. That's what they live
for. I don't know. Like people just, that's.
Yeah. In fact, there's a term in Greece that it's arete, is excellence in character. And that is like core Stoic fundamentals, is to live life, to build your character for excellence. So when you say life, the acronym, I'm like, dude, that's Stoic.
That's
you didn't
funny.
even know it.
I know. See, but this is what I'm saying. Like people always go like, Chris, like you just kind of operate like a Stoic. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. But I heard it enough times to the point where I was like, all right, I'm intrigued. I'm going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit and see what's up.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about this talk because I don't really know a whole lot about this. Like aside from, I'm probably like 30% through the book, and so like that's pretty much all I know is the book, like from a technical perspective. I haven't spent a lot of time on it, but the more I'm getting into it, the more excited I am. So I'm actually probably more excited for this than you or anybody watching it, because I'm excited to hear your perspective. And then obviously I'll take what I know on the personal finance side and connect the dots and chime in, hopefully add some value. But this is going to be the Matt show today.
Cool, man. Well, first of all, Stoicism, what I'm gonna go through today, it's very simple. It's simplistic, meaning there's way more to it than what I'm about to go through. It's just like the more simple explanation of it. It gets a lot deeper. Stoicism is a philosophy of life. Yeah. And it was it originated in ancient Greece and then got really popular in Rome. Some of the popular Stoics, Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, you probably may have heard of them. You could pick up their books. It's nothing but value when you actually learn a lot of the lessons that they have in those books. But it's a philosophy of action, and it's meant for not just learning, sitting back and learning philosophy. It's actually taking the knowledge and putting it into action in life with the goal of building your character. And that's what I really love about Stoicism. It's not a religion. So if you're Christian, Muslim, or whatever you believe in, Stoicism is just something that you can also add to it. And in fact, if you look into the history, a lot of the values and how to live your life in Stoicism was added to the Bible. And we could go into a whole other talk about that, but it's really awesome, the history of it. And a lot of people don't know. The reason why I like Stoicism and whole life and what we talk about, because there's a lot of key things that connect. And I'll talk about the foundation, but I want to talk about the talking points here. Financial problems in our country, they really stem from a human condition. And it's a human condition that we can improve that fixes the financial problem. So we have financial problems because of our own human condition. And Stoicism, believe it or not, actually helps you build that human condition. So where else are we going to learn these human condition and how to actually solve it? Because as you develop and be a better develop on these human conditions, it'll also fix your financial problems. It's so crazy when you connect the dots, right?
Yeah.
So for example,
kind of like I always say, you are where you are because of who you are, right? Like all these people.
That's why a lot of the things you say are Stoic, man. You just don't know the connection, right?
That's so funny. I never even connect the dots. That's hilarious.
And then here's a key part too, like in life, and what Stoicism is really about is you live your life in a way to reach eudaimonia. So, well-being, live a good life, right? And, things that prevent us from living a good life are like suffering and anxiety. And usually anxiety and suffering stem from wanting a desired outcome that we have no control of. We're thinking about something, we want this outcome that we have no control of. And then when you look at conventional wisdom and how people and where people put their money, what are they doing? They're putting their money in financial products, and they have a certain desire where they can't control the outcome. Think about the financial stress of that. And so what Stoicism says is basically, first, don't focus on the outcome, but control what is up to you, control what you can control. And what I like about whole life, you can actually predict the outcome. So like it coincides with the one thing that people are trying to avoid, anxiety and suffering, because we want an outcome that we have no control of. Whole life actually provides that, because we can really control the outcome. We can see what the outcome could be, like the worst case scenario and what's even better than the worst case scenario, right? And that's really the cool part. And I just want to talk about that. But let's go into some foundational Stoic principle. One of the big ones is they call it the dichotomy of control, and really living life and focusing on what is up to us and what's not up to us, right? And you can look at that from a financial aspect. There's a lot of things I think we do financially and we worry about that are not up to us. And there's some things that are truly up to us. And when you think about that, like anything pop up for you, Chris, like people going through their finances and having that dichotomy of control, anything pop up for you?
Yeah. I mean, I like when it comes to money, I mean, I think people, I mean, I don't know if you're trying to get me to go into the IUL stuff right now. But
no, anything.
No, I think it's just like anything else. I think when I think about control, and my mind, when you were just talking, instantly went to just the media. It went to the programming and the idea that if you're not living life by your terms and intentionally, you're living it by somebody else's terms. And we're reactive in nature. We're responding to other people's desires of us. We're constantly being, now more than ever, by a multiple factor, right? Like we are being marketed to more than ever before. And so whether you realize it or not, you're being reactive. And so when you're being reactive, you're not in control. You're not really doing the things that you're in control of, or not focusing on the things that you purely are in control of. I think a lot of people like to look around the world and look at the national debt, and they like to look at the inflation and whether it's Biden or Trump or anything else going on. They like to kind of look at all these microcosms of the world around us, and we can't control that. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you right now, like for me, being down here in the Dominican, one of the biggest blessings I've had is the fact that I get no marketing to me right now. Like it is surreal, the different vibration, the different energy that you're able to live in when you're not constantly being bombarded by all this information. Now, you know, you're here, you're watching this, and so obviously you're seeking our, you know, take on things. If you're on YouTube, you're watching other influencers and watching other content creators. If you're on Instagram, like, we get hit by all that, but like, at least if you are there, you get to kind of pick and choose who you follow, where you spend your time. And I would say, like, talking about control, one of the things you can do to control is go in and scrub who you're following. Make sure that, like, you're only following people that are going to help you become better, help you live the life, you know, that you want to live, and help you, or just scrub it so you're following people that are that share the values that you have, you know, and are kind of maybe ahead of where you are in the journey, but they're where you want to go. You know, like, one of my first mentors said, Chris, if you want to be successful, like, success means different things to different people. The only way that you can ever be successful is get really, really clear on what you want. Find somebody who has the life that you want to live and emulate what they do until you get there, period. Like, it's really not that more, it's not more complicated than that. That's what, you know, and so, like, to me, that's kind of, I never even thought about that stuff as Stoic, or like as a Stoicism kind of philosophy. I just thought about it as like common sense to me, you know, like, it was just like, okay, like, this is just like, success is there, like, that's the path. And like, but success isn't just following blindly, it's thinking critically. It's realizing that we know that our life is going to change, that we're going to evolve. And my constant evolution has forced me to constantly be looking at things different, constantly be looking to different people and different mentorship and different, like, concepts, and always pushing to grow and learn, you know, and that's just part of the journey, I guess, you know, more than anything. But like, you know, when it comes to, I mean, I don't know if that's where you're going, but like, I just think about so many people in the world, and especially the US, focus on things that are out of their control. And when you focus, and I think it's all a distraction technique, and it's all designed, the whole system is designed to keep you a slave. And I know that sounds probably like a bold statement, and maybe an extreme statement for some people, but it's designed to keep you as a profit center for the system, right? You are, every single person, if we think about like the whole, you know, economic system, the whole economy is like a battery that needs energy, you know, to survive. And that battery's got to be constantly recharged by the inflow of spending of people. And, you know, that spending, every person in the country is plugged into that battery and is a little wire that charges it, right? And so I just encourage everybody to think about, like, unplugging yourself, you know, from the battery, and figuring out, like, create your own little battery. You know what I mean? Like, just take your energy and apply it to your family, apply it to your community, apply it to, like, accomplishing the results in your life, and don't worry about all the other things. I promise you, whoever wins the election this year is not going to matter in the grand scheme of things to you. It's going to have some impact. There's going to be some things, but it's, at the grand scheme of things, unless you're worth tens of millions of dollars, you don't have enough going on where it's going to really significantly impact you to a level that you don't have the ability to just grit your way through it and make something work, right? And so that, to me, that's where you say, all right, what can I control? I'm going to focus on that, and I'm going to block out all the noise. Like, I don't know if that's in alignment with everything, but that's just kind of my roundabout way of looking at things. And I used to be horrible with this, by the way. Back in like 2010 and 11, when I first got, I was so bad at following the news and watching the politics and like getting into all that stuff. It was like worrying about inflation, worrying about like monetary policy and Fed policy and all this stuff. And it just, I realized, like, it's all just a waste of time. I mean, you got to know the numbers, you got to know the metrics, you got to have some idea of where we're going to go, but like, only so you can kind of plan. Outside of that, don't go any deeper than that, and don't get all, you know, like, it's because it's pointless.
You know, it's funny that you said that, the distractions and everything that's external to us, and with the Stoics, how they would look at that is it's irrelevant to me, because it has nothing to do with my moral character. And that's the lens they looked at everything from. If it doesn't change my moral character, then it's not good nor bad. It's indifferent. It doesn't really matter to me. That's how they really looked at everything. And in Stoicism, it goes a lot deeper, right? the dichotomy of control is having this mindset of what's up to me and what's not up to me, what's in my control, what's not in my control. Although in the world that we live in, we could talk about, what's in my control is spending money. Where am I going to spend money? Am I going to save money, or am I going to spend money? Right. These small little things that are within our control, if we actually focused on what are we out of control in, you'd be so surprised how we can actually, fix most people's financial situation. You talk about efficiency. People are chasing rate of return, right? They want the highest rate of return. Well, you're looking for 10%, but I'm sure we could probably find 10% and increase your cash flow by 10% by changing what you're already doing, right? We could probably find the money. You're overspending here, or maybe this is not efficient. And so just looking at it from that standpoint, I think it's helpful for people to look at through that lens is, okay, what is in my control? What's not in my control? Now, however, I way simplified the Stoic principle, because how the Stoics actually believed is what's really in their control, and that what they believed is the only thing that's actually in your control in life is your faculties of judgment, like how you judge circumstances, how you judge things that happen to you in life, right? Motivations, desire, and aversions. Those are the only real things that you have true control of. So I did simplify it, but I think still simplifying it will kind of give somebody a foundation to figure out, okay, what kind of lens should I look at life through? Well, one helpful thing that the Stoic did is, well, create a list. And this is what Epictetus and Seneca did. They created a list. Well, what's in my control? What's not in my control? And focus on what's in my control. It's just so simple, right? But I don't want to oversimplify Stoicism because it goes deeper than that. But in contrast, they looked at everything external to that is indifferent. It's not good or bad. It doesn't really matter, because as long as I am virtuous as a person, none of that really matters. So dichotomy of control is foundational, and I think it's helpful when we look in the financial realm. They do have key 3 disciplines. It's the discipline of assent, discipline of desire, discipline of action. I'm not going to go really deep into it, but just keep that in mind. We could talk about it in another one. Another fundamental thing is trust in providence and living according to nature. That's going to be a whole other 2-hour film. But the fourth one I want to talk about, it's very important, is virtue. And this is really foundational. The Stoics believed that virtues were essential to forming the ideal character of becoming like a Stoic sage. Like in Stoicism, a sage is like that perfect person. Like they do everything perfect. There's a lot of documentation where a lot of Stoics looked at Socrates as the one and only sage that ever lived, right? But these virtues are not separate. They're interdependent aspects of a single ethical approach to life. And I'm going to go through those 4 cardinal virtues. So, and that's how you, by cultivating these virtues, is how the Stoics achieve eudaimonia, which is often translated as happiness, flourishing, well-being, right? So the first virtue is wisdom. And so wisdom, we have our definitions of wisdom and stuff like that, but it's really one of the most important virtues, because it's a guide to all the virtues, because it tells you how much of the virtues you should be doing, how much of whatever you're doing, right? Wisdom is not only about acquiring knowledge, but it's also by applying it correctly. And is this something I should do or not? And when I think about wisdom, obviously, sometimes we have to live through life to attain wisdom, or sometimes we can meet people to help us with the wisdom. And I think when we look at that aspect, are we applying it correctly? Like, are we applying our financial strategies correctly? Is the financial strategy that I'm implementing now, is this something I should do or not? Right? That's really the question. You could attain that answer through wisdom by making mistakes, or you can, meet other people that can help you along with that journey. But wisdom is a key one. Did I lose you? And I think we lost Chris. He should be back here in a couple of seconds. But I'll continue, Chris. So the second one is temperance. And temperance is really like moderation, staying in the middle, right? With temperance, I think he's coming back on. No, he should be back on. For those of you that don't know, he's in the Dominican Republic, and sometimes they have blackouts. So temperance, things to be chosen and things to be avoided, right? Things are not really good or bad outside of virtue. Things are not really good or bad. Outside of virtue, they're just indifferent. They're not good or bad. But with temperance, it's really understanding the things outside of virtue. Are they preferred or not preferred? But they're all indifferent. But temperance is like, if you're going to go out, have a few drinks, are you going to drink until you black out, or are you going to moderate? It's all about moderation. And then the third one is justice. And with justice, it's more looking at things and doing the right thing, but what is owed to a person and looking at it from that standpoint, right? What are they entitled to? What are they responsible for? And so when you look at the virtue of justice, it's really beyond just the individual, but it's justice for the common good of all. And that was one of the key points about Stoicism, is it wasn't always about themselves. It was about the common good for all. And I think that's so vital. And I think that's so important, especially in what we do. When we talk about like whole life and how it can help people, we're not thinking about us. We're thinking about the common good for everybody and how we can help them. Oh, I think he's coming back on. Technical difficulties. Very good, Brian. Proactive and overreacting. So we went through wisdom. We went through temperance, moderation, right? Justice, doing the right thing. And then the last one is courage. And we all have our definition of courage. And I think we think more of physical courage. But I think a big part of courage for Stoicism is, there we go.
Hey, guys. Good to be back.
So we went through wisdom.
Perfect.
We went through temperance, which is moderation, right?
Yep.
How much of what we do. Justice, doing what's right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one, I was just talking about courage. And with courage, we think about the physical courage, but it's also the moral courage, facing moral issues and standing up for what's right. Facing competition or facing things that you don't believe in, progressing through the unknown, and facing mental challenges like fear and anxiety with whatever you do, right? And I think, what the Stoic says is if those four virtues, you can't have one without the other. But if you really focus on cultivating those four virtues, you'll live a well-lived life. And
that's awesome.
That's kind of like what we talked about yesterday, is when I said in the beginning, whole life makes you virtuous. I think everybody was like, what? This is that's a very...
I don't think it was just that. I mean, I think it's like, all right, whole life makes you virtuous, and there's a virtuousness to the act of buying whole life, right? Because it's like taking on that responsibility, and it's not about you, right? Like a whole life, when you buying it and having it as part of your financial strategy is by nature a virtuous act, because it's not about you. You know what I mean? It's about somebody else. Now, the fact that it can benefit you, it's not completely virtuous in the way that we do it and teach, because, there's definitely benefits to you while you're alive. But I would really argue that because of the fact that it absolutely is the backstop to your financial success, and make sure that, it increases your chances of success 20-fold. You know what I mean? From a long-term perspective, having it. And so that by nature is virtuous, right? Because you know that even if it's not where you make the biggest returns, it's going to protect your biggest returns, right? It's going to protect your biggest assets. It's going to do all these things. And so that is awesome. But like, so you went into some of that, but like where you got into like the courage and like the other things, like, I don't know, the way you were talking about it.
Yeah, yesterday. So,
like,
so I said, whole life, I think, as a client, somebody who gets whole life,
Yeah.
You're looking at all the financial benefits, but what you're not going to see and what you don't even realize, it's also going to build your character in a certain way
Hmm.
just by having the whole life policy. And I
Yep.
relate it to Stoicism so much. And what I was saying yesterday is somebody who owns whole life, right? They're automatically going to be practicing justice and courage, because by having whole life, you're basically putting people first, right? You're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing. If you pass away, your family's going to be taken care of, right? You're doing the right thing. If you pass away, nobody else has to pay for your death or any of your expenses. You got it covered, right? You're doing the right thing because if something happened to you, you got cancer, you have money to take care of yourself. You don't have to rely on the government. You don't have to rely on anybody else. And I think anytime you put people first, that takes courage, because a lot of us, it's all about self-preservation. And then when you put others before you, I think that's just a courageous act. And
Hmm.
so by getting whole life, you really start, cultivating those virtues of justice and courage. And the second one I was talking about is by having whole life, you're automatically, in some sense, goal oriented,
Hmm.
because now you actually have a plan, and everybody knows having a plan is a key to success, right? And now
For sure.
with whole life, you have a part of your financial plan. It's not the one end all, but it's a part of
Right.
it where at least this part of it, it's predictable. You have control and you know exactly the outcome, and it's one thing in your life that is stable while everything else is, you don't know what's going to happen. And I think being goal oriented is wise. Whether you've ever been goal oriented or not, you can seek wisdom through other people, and they will tell you being goal oriented is very smart, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're
Totally.
practicing, the wisdom. You're also a good steward of money. And I think this is the big problem in our country. Most people, I sat with a lot of people over the last 10 years, and they don't have much money to save. And it's not that
Sure.
they don't, they just spend too much money,
Yeah.
right? And whole life really puts you in the position where you have to be disciplined. You're paying that premium and putting the money and saving it versus
Mm.
spending it and finding different ways you can spend the money. And I think being a good steward of money, that really cultivates temperance and then also wisdom, because having that discipline, you can pass on to your kids. That's
Mm.
such a valuable trait that if you could pass on to other people, it's so valuable, because I think a lot of people lack it, especially as technology has grown and this world has grown. Amazon, now you can, anything you want, you can click it and have it to your house tomorrow. So we get this, everything's working against us to just want to spend money and buy, 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 buy.
Totally.
And I think, whole life can really counteract that and just really suppress it. And no, I'm not going to buy, I'm going to save for my future, right? Good steward of money. And being intentional was the other thing I talked about, right? That's part of wisdom. Being committed, that's having wisdom. Being disciplined, that's part of temperance. And then the last one is I think, having whole life, you're really living with purpose and meaning. You're doing something intentionally with an outcome that you actually desire, right? And you're doing and you're putting things in place. So when I said like whole life builds character, I truly believe it. And I think it builds character that a lot of people lack. And I think a lot of people need those characters.
Mm.
Whether you get it anywhere else,
I,
that's fine.
I,
I just
I
don't know
love
what
it.
other product would build that, right?
No, I mean, dude, it's like so cool because, I always say one of my favorite parts about it is like, it's going to force you to implement a strategy and to behave a certain way and to pass all your decisions through a filter that kind of helps you make those decisions. And it's going to help you become who you need to be to live the life that you want to live. And it's
Yeah.
all because of the process and the
Mhm.
foundation of like, we have to start thinking about our personal finances not from an asset perspective, like should I invest in mutual funds or stocks or whole life insurance or IUL or any of these things. That none of that matters. What matters is our structure and the foundations that we build upon and the principles that we, kind of live to in our life. And so like when I look at it like that to me is what it's all about, right? Like, is like if we could think about personal finances not as like the different assets that we use, but the structure that we use to build the house. It's kind of like What matters if we build a house? You know, like it doesn't matter that we have countertops and sinks and toilets and tile and walls and sheetrock and wood and like wires and copper and all these things. What matters is the structure in which is all there. Like you need all those things to have a successful house. You need all these different assets to have a successful financial life. But if you don't do it in the right order, if I build a house without building my foundation proper, like I could have the greatest house in the world, especially being here in the Dominican Republic, but one storm comes through and that house is gone. You know, the foundation gets swept out from under it. And that's the problem that most people are living in. And the reality is the reason that happens is because people are being marketed to. People have bought the story, the younger you are, the more risk you can take, when it's really the opposite. The younger you are, the less risk you have to take because you have time and compounding on your side. And the worst thing you can do to interrupt compounding is have losses. And really the definition of more risk means you have a greater chance of loss. That is the definition of it. So only in the US have we, bought into the lie that, how your number one chance of getting successful is go increase your chance of loss. That's your number. Like there are areas that principle can apply if the asymmetric returns, right? Like the amount of risk you take. I talk about it in poker tournaments a lot. That's why I love poker, right? Like I play poker tournaments where I can cash or like make money in a tournament 1 out of every 5 times that I play, maybe 1 out of 7 times that I play. And so that means 6 times I play, I go spend money and I lose money, right? That's it. On the 7th time, if I'm not making, 20 times my buy-in, like if I'm spending $100 on a tournament or $1,000 on a tournament, that means I'm going to spend $7,000, right, over 7 tournaments. And if I know I'm going to cash, like the asymmetric return means when I hit that return is going to be huge. In poker tournaments, I've had it so you make 200, 300 times whatever your buy-in is, right? And so like, okay, you have to know how to manage that risk, but the problem is, and this is why it's so funny. Like, I feel like my days as a professional poker player, ironically, made me really good at personal finance, because bankroll management as a professional poker player directly correlates to personal finance management, understanding you need to have a foundation. Like I had a rule, like I would never play poker with more than 4% of my bankroll, period. Because I knew for me, my variance, I could lose 20, 30, 40% of it. And I had times where I did. And I'm not saying that's fun, but because I had the foundation, because I had the full bankroll and I had a system that I operated through, it allowed me to rebuild it back to bigger and better than it was, before the downswing started, right? And that's what it's all about. And so like people in this country don't have financial foundations. We've got a lot of assets that make us feel really good when the economy's good, and that gives us this false sense of security, this false sense of success, and that actually stokes the flame of a lot of the challenges that we have with personal finance, right? Like it stokes the flame of our bad behaviors and our bad actions and like our bad mindsets around money, because we feel like we're better off than we are. And so if we do, then we're going to make bad decisions around our money. We're not going to build our foundations. And then all of a sudden, boom, financial storm comes, it all goes away, you lose your job, and now you're like, oh crap, what do I do now? And you got to start over, And I got news for people. You got 40 years max, really, of earning potential. And if you mess up 1 decade where you felt like you're good, that's 25% of your time. And if you understand compounding, when all the growth happens, you just basically cut your knees off from under you. And I'm saying that because I've done the metrics on myself. If you make a mess of that one time, that means you just have to become better to increase your earning potential. And that's the reality. And that's why I love what we do, is teaching the principles, but also teaching people how to increase your earning potential and know how to invest in the right assets, invest in yourself, increase your cash flow, all these things. Because at the end of the day, most people screw it up, and we waste a decade when we're at the beginning of our time. So that means we got to work even harder to make it work after the fact.
So true. People, man, I wish people understood that. I know, like yesterday, I was about to say something, but you're like, no, wait for tomorrow, and I'm gonna leave with this summary. And I wrote this
Yep.
down. It says, in summary, the Stoics believe that the pursuit of virtue and the common good are intertwined, and
Yep.
that living virtuous life involves not only personal development, but also a commitment to the welfare of others and the broader community. And so Stoicism, it wasn't always about them. It was all about the community as a whole. They actually, they call it cosmopolitanism. They believed all humans were one, like we were all under the same roof, right? And they really focus on the welfare of their community and other people. And this is what I was saying yesterday. A lot of people, they say to you, Chris, why do you have to, go there? Why do you bring up IUL? Why do you always have to talk about, why can't you just stay in whole life lane? And why do you have to talk about IUL? And the same thing with me, right? Well, it's because we care about other
Yeah.
people. And if there's other people that
Yeah.
are harming other people, why would you not stand up for that? That takes courage, right? That's justice, doing the right thing, right? And wisdom is attained because with what we experience, we have wisdom that what is being sold is not right. The story is not right. So it's all stoicism, right? And for me, it's like not only just whole life, but it's the dang agents like WFG, PHP, GFI, PFA, all these multi-level marketing organizations that are totally screwing agents. I'm not going to just sit back and not say anything. I'm not going to sit back and allow all these new people get into the industry just to get sucked up into some company that's spouting half truths and doing the wrong thing for people. So yeah, I'm not going to be quiet about it. I'm not going to sit back. I am going to stand up for it. And I think when people get mad at that, they're like, "Oh, you're hating." I'm like, "You're totally ignorant of what's going on, my friends." So
Yeah.
I think I think it's responsibility for anybody. If you ever see anybody doing wrong, I think you should stand up for it. Why would you stay quiet? I think you should stand up for it. You should be vocal about it. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's that many people vocal about IULs and these multi-level
But
marketing
it
companies
takes
selling IULs.
courage.
So
It takes
somebody
courage.
has to do it.
It takes
So
courage
yes,
to do that, though, right?
we'll do it. We'll take the torch. And I
Right.
promise you that torch is going to get bigger and it's going to be bigger. And I told one of these guys that I knew that sells IUL still, I say, "Hey, look," I said, "get really comfortable selling IULs because in the next few months, next year, the year after, I promise you it'll become harder and harder and harder." And I say, "You know what? It's not even about us. Well, we're going to equip clients with knowledge where they're going to ask the tough questions that you don't know how to answer. That's why."
Totally.
So congratulations. You're building a business that's going to become harder and irrelevant in the future.
Well, you just did that, didn't you? Just have a meeting with some higher ups with a company and some successful people that are supposed to be mentoring other people, and you just asked them some questions about it, and they didn't even know the answers. And these are
So we had
income.
we had an interview with a very well-known company, and some of the leaders decided to kind of see what we're about, and they wanted to do an interview. And it wasn't just one person. Usually it's just one-on-one, but it was like 4 of them.
Yeah.
And these guys are in high leadership positions, and they said, "Look, our problem is we don't understand, we don't see what you see about IULs and what's wrong with them." I said, "Great, well let's talk about it." I said, "In fact, let's do this. I'll be a client and let's role play. And you sell me the benefits of an IUL, but I also want you to explain to me the downsides of an IUL." And these are 4 leaders, $250,000 earners. They have massive.
That's kind of what I did to you when we first talked.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's exactly what you did. And so I asked them what the downsides were, and they had their blanket response, which is a very common response. But when I started asking for specifics, they couldn't tell me. They could not tell me anything. And I told them, I said, "Aren't you concerned that you don't know the answers to the questions that I asked you? Because I would imagine you're in this industry because you want to help people, right? You want to make an impact, but yet you don't know the answers to these. Do you think people should know the answers to this? Yes, but you don't. That's a problem, don't you think?" And then I went through actually some of the answers, and I actually opened up the engine. I told them, these are some of the attributes of IUL. They're not my opinion. They're just objective characteristics.
Yeah.
And the fact is, with these objective characteristics, if you don't explain it to clients, you're not giving them the full picture. And if you're not giving them the full picture, they're half truths. Then what are you really selling here, right? So I I think they needed to digest that appointment. Nobody had answers. It was me against 4 people, by the way, and nobody really had anything to say. They're just
That's not a fair fight.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just really the point. And I really believe in what we
Yeah.
do, and I really believe that with time, we're definitely on the right side of this fence. So, but it does relate to Stoicism, to sum it up.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, man. I mean, it's, I think what we do is so important. I think, you know, I look at it, and we were talking about this yesterday, but I think the thing to me that is the coolest about what we do is the fact that you have the ability to just gamify life. And the more I've been thinking about this, and I've been writing, you know, a bunch of different blogs and working on 2 of my new books that I'm working to put out. And so I've been spending a lot of time in just like, you know, thinking about all this stuff and doing research, you know, on different financial strategies and all these different things. And the thing that to me is the coolest part about this is just the gamification ability of life. And when you know that you've got a financial strategy that's not just about what are you going to look like right now, you know, do I drive a Lambo? Do I look really good and whatnot on social media? And like, is it about that? Like, so I can't stand, you know, people that just are like, look at me in my Lambo, or look at me on my private jet or my helicopter or stuff like that. That crap drives me crazy because it's like the most narcissistic thing ever. That doesn't tell me, you know, you care anything about anybody. It doesn't tell me who you are, your value. Like it's just, you know, it's so empty and shallow. I look at the fact that when we have the ability to implement a strategy that says, I'm starting with the end in mind, I'm being intentional about the life that not just the life that I want to live, but the life that I want to leave, you know, the impact and the legacy, and, you know, whether it's to my community, whether it's to my family, it's the principles, it's, you know, it's the money, the resources, the strategies, all these things that kind of go into it. And when you know for a fact that, like, I sign on the dotted line for this contract, because make no mistake about it, whole life insurance policy is a contract, and that contract guarantees a result for you as long as you just do your bare minimum work and pay the premium, right? And so what you're doing is you're guaranteeing a result for your family on the end. So like for me, if I'm building, and I am, by the way, guys, I'm building 4 different businesses right now, all at the same time, right? I've got the hotel in the Dominican, I've got Life 180, we got a marketing company, we got like, we're doing all these things, and I love it, right? And I have so much fun. And you talk to anybody that works with me, they'll probably tell you they've never met anybody that has more fun doing what they do than me, right? Like that. And I feel lucky about that, but I also am able to do that because I've literally gotten to the point where I'm like, even if I suck at what I do at the end of the day, or even if like I screw up or whatever, I've got this system in place that's there that will guarantee the result of what I'm working towards, because I've at least had enough success, right? And so my human life value, my future net worth potential has gone up. So insurance companies have kept giving me more and more insurance, right? And so therefore that's in place. Every time a life insurance company says, hey, Chris, we'll give you more, I say, okay, thanks, I'll take it, right? Because for me, principally speaking, I want to make sure that I lock in that result, right? And now, if I know that that's the case, how much peace of mind does that give me around the responsibility I have to my business partners, to my wife, to my kids, to the community that we're building, you know, all the people that are relying on me, you know, for all the things that I do. And if something were to happen to me, bang, there's money to help take care and make sure that the vision of Life 180 never dies. There's money to make sure that my wife and kids are taken care of. There's money to make sure that the vision that I have continues to grow, and that, you know, that people still keep getting this information, and that I have the right people in the right place to get invested in and help elevate them, and they have the resources to carry the torch and move forward. You know what I mean? Like, that's freaking amazing. And to me, it's amazing to know that, like, yeah, I hope I live a long, happy, healthy life. You know, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not looking to die or anything. But it is super cool to know that every time I'm on an airplane and I feel a lot of turbulence and I'm thinking of a very specific situation, I don't worry about it. It's like, hey, you know, it is what it is, you know? And we just do the best we can do. And, you know, I think the nature of the process of getting to a point where you start thinking of things in those terms forces you to become a different human being, and it forces you to elevate. And when you just the nature of thinking that way, once you get to the point where you think about that way, things in the way that I just kind of described, you start showing up differently at the same time, you know?
100% perspective, man.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's awesome.
Perspective.
So much fun.
Very awesome.
So, all right. Got anything else? Are we good? I think we're good.
Man, I think that was passion-filled.
That's pretty good.
Passion-filled.
That's good. It's awesome. I love it. Well, guys, thanks so much for being here. If you guys haven't followed Matt, it's is it Matt Seibert? At Matt Seibert? Or is it Matt?
Oh, yeah. It's at Matt Seibert on YouTube.
Okay. At Matt Seibert on YouTube. Go follow him. I actually put the link in the description below on the YouTube channel. If you're there, go check him out. Follow him. He's starting to create a lot more content. He's doing a lot of stuff. If you are not familiar with Matt on previous videos, he is the director of agent development for Life 180. So he kind of helps train all the agents and mentors and is much more hands-on than I am. Not that I'm like totally hands-off, but Matt is just amazing at mentoring people and kind of being in the foxhole with people when we're doing this stuff. And he's amazing out there. So go follow his channel. He's just kind of getting it rolling, but I think it's going to be a really, really valuable channel for people to follow. So let's see here. Let's dissect the IUL. I want to make sure I don't blow through comments and miss it. Let's dissect the IUL I set up for my girls. Oh, so somebody with you.
He's an agent.
Long run. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. I know he's an agent on the team. I just that's absolutely needs to be done. So yeah, I think that's good. We're good, guys. Thanks everybody for being here. If you found value in this, please like it, share it, get it out there to people. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel here. Go follow Matt on his channel. And if you haven't already, I just did this really fun review series, and the next video is coming out tomorrow. So make sure you're looking out for that. That's part 3. But if you haven't watched part 1 and 2 of the wealthy accountant and his attack on the infinite banking concept, I did like a 2-hour response, and I had to break it into 3 videos. And it's super detailed. And I think it's like, if you're really looking to learn this stuff, I think it's super educational. I think it'll be helpful. So that's it. Till next video. Have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk soon. Later.